And Sophie, you're a little bit blurry.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why. My webcam has just been weird recently. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. All right, we're officially live with the filmmakers behind Through Her Eyes short showcase, which is one of my favorite blocks at this film festival, which is I'm not saying a hell of a lot. There are 5 blocks. It's one of my favorite blocks. I'm kind of like dodging, I don't want to offend anybody, but a few of these films stuck with me for a really long time, and I actually was in charge of shorts programming this year. I'm a festival director and ended up taking on shorts programming, and it was so amazing to see so much quality work coming through. And when this block came to be, I was like, this is going to blow someone's mind to put all of these films together because there's such a beautiful range of emotions. So before I ramble on any further, we're going to do everything clockwise. So from next to me is Milena. So just go around and introduce yourself and just maybe a couple of sentences about the film that you made.
Hi, I'm Milena Bennett. I'm the director of The Listening. The film is mainly about fear and isolation. And a lot of it's based on things that I have felt and my fear of pregnancy. And I wanted to make a film where your emotions were mirrored in nature. Yeah, that's all.
Okay. Just to avoid feedback, if we can put ourselves on mute when we're not talking, and then unmute ourselves when we are talking, that'll be perfect. Okay, so Sophie?
Hi, I'm Sophie. I directed Peeps. It's a film in a shopping center. It was a really insane shoot, and it has talking birds in it.
Such a beautiful film. Nora?
I'm Nora, and I wrote Savage Breakup, which I like to describe as my fan fiction to Dan Savage. And I was also in it as an actor.
You looked familiar.
Yeah.
Sue?
Sorry about that. I'm Sue. Hi, I'm the producer of Mummaville, and we're joining you with our director of photography, Mariam, and I will be translating for her as well. So our director couldn't make it, unfortunately, because it's 2 a.m. in Turkey, so I thank Mariam for that. She stayed up to join us. Yeah, so our film is about a teenage granddaughter and the relationship she has with her grandmother. She's just on the verge of discovering her sexuality, and the grandmother is about to leave it, we can say. Yeah, it's about this togetherness between them.
Awesome. Mariam?
Hello. I'm joining from Istanbul. I'm the cinematographer of Mamaville. We worked together. She told about the story.
Oh, great. She's speaking English. Perfect.
Just a reminder to mute yourself again when you're not talking, and on to Claire. We're in Ireland now.
Hi.
Hey, Claire.
Hello. I'm Claire Byrne, and I'm the director of This Village, which is a story about 2 sisters kind of overcoming a lot of distance and yeah, kind of like a flip of the workaway dad. So it's a workaway mother, and also yeah, deals with a lot of themes of like shame, and there's different layers to the theme of shame in the film, I think.
Carlota.
Hi, this is Carlota Pereda. the director of There Will Be Monsters, and it's 5 minutes and it's true horror.
Yes, it is. Jackie?
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Vogel. I'm the director of Savage Breakup, and our collective is Hysterical Hearts. I'm with Nora and Melissa. And our cute little short that we made together collectively, it was for the first time just with our team of 4. Sarah Slouchuk wasn't able to make it into the panel today, but we filmed that, just the 4 of us, with whatever we could pull together, and we're really proud of it and proud to be along with so many amazing female storytellers in this panel and blog.
Thanks. Thank you. Melissa?
Mel, you're muted.
Thank you. I don't have very much to add, just that I watched all of your movies, and what an incredible piece of art in itself, watching all of them together. So thank you. I don't have much to add. I was a producer for Hysterical Hearts, and with these 3 other women, we're doing what we love to do. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Absolutely. My questions are in the order of your films, but you are not sitting in the order of your films. This is a very disorienting thing, and I wish I could turn the screen around and show you my 5 monitors over here as I'm running tech support for this film festival, which feels like a first-year film festival all over again, doing everything new. But I will do this in the order. So The Listening. I mean, I really enjoyed this film. I don't know if you're okay with me mentioning our history. You're okay with? Okay, so Melena submitted this film last year, and people think that programmers don't read cover letters. We do read. We do read cover letters. I promise you, we do. And because as much as a festival is selecting a film, they are also selecting a filmmaker, right? And every opportunity that a filmmaker has to expose what they're doing, why this film matters to them, why it's a good film for your film festival, I think that is a good way to be memorable. And so it did not get in last year. It was a little bit longer.
Yes.
And I was blown away that you submitted again and how differently I felt about this film this year. And we had a bunch of people that messaged us throughout these screenings as they're watching. And a few people said, I don't get it. Am I stupid? I'm not getting it. Is this happening? Is that happening? And I said, pay attention to your feelings. That's the part that matters. So I want to ask you a question about this film. Your film feels as much about childbirth as it does about isolation, paranoia, and a growing sense of disconnection, the natural world, our sense of wonder, memories. How are you able to merge or tackle all of these themes without falling into the pitfall of conceptually overloading your film to become distracting?
My instinct, as soon as you ask that question, is just that I feel that it's all connected. When we were writing the film, we weren't necessarily thinking, oh, we're putting too much into it. We just weren't thinking about that. It came quite naturally, and because it's centered around a woman who's pregnant, it's so close to Mother Nature, and I was really curious to see what like I guess we live in a world where we kind of see ourselves and our life, the way we spend our lives, we think that we're very separate to the natural world, and the way we treat the natural world is almost like it's not important. And so when making this film, I wanted to see what would happen when, you know, you're unraveling emotionally. What would happen if that affected the natural world, and vice versa. So I wanted to mirror her emotions, Freya's emotions, in the natural world. And so yeah, I didn't really think about if there was too much going on, because I just see it as all linked.
I think it is linked.
Yeah.
So I think your instincts are correct there. Sophie, this is probably the film that we laughed at the most. I mean, no disrespect to every other comedy at this. And of course, what we find funny is completely personal and subjective to the viewer. But I could not stop laughing. It was literally nonstop. And if we may say, it feels like we've never seen a film like this before. Okay, they say everything's been done before. How are you able to be original in a medium that's increasingly derivative? I apologize if my eye line is off. I'm having to read off of another screen. I apologize, and I don't want to screw this up. So yeah, that was my question. How are you able to be so original?
I don't know. That is a hard question. I suppose it. I have really, really high standards with being original because it matters to me a lot. So I watched a lot of movies, and I thought about this movie for a really long time. Because it was my graduate film at film school, and it was sort of this script that I'd been trying to write for a couple of years, and it had changed lots and lots of times over the years. And I don't know. I guess I was very determined from the beginning to make something that no one had ever seen before. So when I was trying to explain it to people, like I explained it to producers at school and stuff, and it was quite difficult before the film had been made to convince anyone that it was going to be any good. Because it was like, I want to film in a shopping center and I want to improvise a lot of stuff with these kids. And some people, one person told me it was going to be terrible. But I think that's what motivated me to make it, because I was like, I have to know now whether it will be any good or not.
Do you still know that person?
Yeah. Yeah, he changed his mind.
I was going to say, how does he feel now?
Yeah.
Nora, as a producer, how do you go about mapping out the production of a film that is this self-contained? Does it make it harder, or does it make it easier as a producer to be kind of locked off in one location, two characters? So I guess that's my question for you.
It's hard to sometimes separate my hats, because I was working both like artistically and thinking about the logistics. I think it's a producer's dream to have like one location, two people, do it all and call it a day. But actually, we removed a lot from the film. So kind of what looks like the dream, and when you're watching it and it's very simple, isn't entirely like representative of what the producing process was, and of some other things that we thought might be fun to include and tried to get, and then artistically had to kind of pull back and say, no, this is actually a really simple story, and it's more interesting and exciting if we really hone in on the moment, on what's happening. And so it looks like, I would say, a more straightforwardly produced film than it actually was, which I think is the reality of producing all the time. It always looks easier than it is.
Completely agree. Miriam, I'm going to pull up your question here because it was not added to our question list. Just give me 1 second here. But this, I want to add that I think this film was amazing. It announced the block so well. I watched this film with my girlfriend, actually, and she said, I think what a lot of people said, which was, this feels like my grandmother. This feels so So yeah, so just give me 1 second here as I switch accounts to my account and then pull up my question. I apologize. Okay, so my first question is, so I have a question for Sue, and then I have a question for Mariam, yeah? So my question for Sue is, what drew you to Irmak's work, right, the director, and what was that first conversation like about Mamaville? Like,
I'd like to begin with the second part of the question, actually. So the first conversation we had, and I didn't know her. We met specifically for this project, and it was online because she lived in Chicago then, and I was in Turkey.
mhm.
And that conversation took about 3 hours. And the pitching was kind of all over the place because she didn't have the script yet. But the thing that drew me in was she knew exactly the tone of it. She knew the mood of the film. She knew that subtlety that you feel when you watch it. It was there just from the beginning, and that's what really grabbed me about the film. And I didn't care that the narrative was kind of all over the place, and that, I mean, the second thing, actually, she was very open to work together. Irmak is the person that really values collectivity as opposed to owning a film, sole-handedly. She really believed that each person that's involved in the film as a key creative should transform it in some way. And that was the second thing.
That's really interesting that you mentioned that, because sorry. I should mute myself as I we were just talking at a panel just before this with Mark Grasso, and we came to the conclusion that there's absolutely no way forward if you're a jackass in this industry. That people don't want to work with you. People don't feel like a good sense of energy from you, and unfortunately we're not able to meet Irmak here, but it really helps to understand what kind of director she is, because I think that the type of director you are reflects the type of person you are, ultimately dictates the type of people that will be willing to work with you. And effectively, because film is sometimes I think film is unfairly classified as a director's medium, right? Because that's the person that every audience member can direct their questions to, and people don't really understand, well, what does a sound designer do, and what does a cinematographer do, and what did a writer do in this position? So I can just ask everything to the director, but I think anyone who's ever made a film would agree that it takes so many people to do that, and I think the quality of who you are ultimately dictates the type of people who will be willing to work with you, including really great producers who are willing to go back for your film and work so hard for it. My question for Miriam, and this is going to be less about Irmak and more about you, because I found myself really mesmerized by the cinematography of this. Now, I come from a different school of thought in cinematography. My earliest impressions are all very European, and I got a sense of documentary, little bit of following around, capturing the moment. So I want to ask you, how much of this film was blocked, rehearsed, storyboarded beforehand, and how much of this was you capturing what felt interesting, and what was that dynamic like between you and Irmak?
I'll go on Turkish.
Okay.
Bu böyle bir pencere beklemiyordum Su ve şu anda büyüsüne kapıldım bu kadar güzel kadını bir arada görünce. Benim de söyleyeceklerim seninkilerle aynı Irmak hakkında. Siz birlikte, biz buluştuğumuzda zaten elinizde harika bir senaryo vardı ve bence ortaya çıkan film senaryonun belki yarısı kadar güzel. Bu hep benim kafamı kurcalayan bir soruydu. Senaryo o kadar güzeldi ki biz bu kadar güzel bir film çekebildik mi? Düşüncesi beni hiç terk etmedi. Bunu da Irmak'a sürekli sorup durdum. Irmak için bu bir keşif yolculuğuydu ve ben de ona bu konuda eşlik etmekten büyük mutluluk duydum. Ama senin de söylediğin gibi zaten birçok şey senaryo üzerinde yazılıydı ve Irmak beraber çalışmaya çok açıktı. Birkaç gün önce gittiğimizde mekana ben sanki daha önce o evi görmüş gibiydim. Anneannesiyle tanışmış gibiydim. Dolayısıyla yazdığı şeyi görmek çok zor olmadı.
Should I translate this part first? If she's gonna go on, it's gonna be too much. So first of all, I'm mesmerized to see all these beautiful women in front of me. It's wonderful to see so many talented young directors and to be with them. So she's actually very modest. She said that the film is only half good as the script. She really loved the script from the beginning. Everything was already there, and as Sue said, Irmak was very open to work with. So when we spent the first couple of days before the shooting started, I met the grandmother, and I felt like I've known her for a really long time. So after that, we just sort of blended whatever was on the script, and then just the improvisation and all these elements together, and then the final result was this. Yeah. Did you want to continue, Mariam? Okay.
Claire, thank you, by the way, Mariam, for this very beautiful, I was nodding as you were speaking, even though I don't speak a lick of Turkish, because I knew from the tone of what you were saying that what you were going to say was going to be so beautiful and humble, and I got it right. So, Sister This, Claire, I really, this film is super interesting to me, and I think I want to ask you: has society made us prone to accepting the working dad away from home cliche more readily than we're willing to accept absent mothers? And I'll let you know why this question is super duper relevant right after you answer.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And it's kind of a theme of the film that we weren't focusing on from the beginning. So something that kind of became more of a thing as we started to develop it. And even Charlie, who plays Caitlin, so she plays the older sister, she's a mother herself. And she struggled with that part of the character. She was like, why would she leave her kid? And so I think we're culturally kind of conditioned to judge mothers more harshly maybe than we are fathers. And so I think women definitely come under more scrutiny when it comes to being an absent parent. I'd say that's definitely true, yeah.
The reason that the big expose here is that we had a film yesterday that played at the film festival called The State of Texas versus Melissa. And it's a very great documentary that was awarded Best Documentary at Raindance, and it's about the first Hispanic woman put on death row in Texas. And what Sabrina Van Tassel and I, and to those of you who missed that Q&A, please go watch it later, we're discussing was how much of the expectation society has of what a good mother, a good woman ought to be, and how much any woman deviating from that subverts that reality and forces us to sort of lash out against that woman, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's a very rigid definition of that. So, I've always held this practical opinion that if a woman makes more than a man should stay at home. Like if that's agreeable to you, there should be no ego about that. So I really appreciate your film, and I think that it's very rebellious, and I think a lot of these films are very rebellious, and I really appreciate that. Now, speaking of rebels, Carlota, first of all, it's pleasure to finally face-to-face meet you. We selected your film. We have exchanged 100 emails over the last 3 years. We select your film. Carlota, for those of you who don't know, was awarded Best Short Film at Sundance 2019, which was an incredible lineup of shorts, of 41 shorts, and this was the film that we awarded Best Film. And we were not alone in our praise for this film. It won the Goya Award. And when, I think last year, I saw the teaser or trailer that you were making a new film, I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what she does now. And I've started to pick up on themes in your first 3 films. Because that's what we do. We evaluate filmmakers and we see, like, what are they going at? And I noticed one theme, which is people overcoming bullies, which are effectively monsters, but they do overcome them. The good guys win. So I want to ask, well, is that important for you to show that?
Absolutely. I want to give victims back their power. They don't have to be defined by their trauma. They're much more than that. Yeah.
And a follow-up to that, because you answered that question so quickly. I remember, we were not able to bring you to Toronto in 2019, but we did play your taped recording right after your film, and you said that you had made Piggy for your daughter.
Yeah.
Yes,
I have a small daughter who is in the short film. In There Will Be Monsters, the voice you hear is my daughter, actually.
Yeah.
I had to bribe her to be in it. But yeah, I think you have to make a change. I mean, for me, movies is about making film and entertaining people, but also everything is political for me. So my films are political, even though they're genre films, yeah.
But see, that's so interesting to me, because generally speaking, I don't like when films are political, but I love your films. Mm-hmm. So whatever you're doing, it's resonating with someone who's probably not your target audience, but I love them. And I think that they're so well crafted, and the pacing, and there's, from a technical perspective and also from the messaging perspective, I love them. So thank you so much. And absolutely, there's so many comments over here, and we're going to show them all to you. But before that, we're going to go to Jackie. Jacqueline, I'm going to go off script here.
Okay.
Okay. Do you remember attending a screening back in 2016 and watching my first short films?
Which screening? I remember watching your short films, but I don't
remember. You attended a screening. Mirko was there.
Yeah.
You were there.
Yeah.
And you came up to me afterwards and you said, "That was your first short film? Wow, man, so talented." So 4 years later, I'm going to pay that compliment back to you. That was your first short film. And by the way, nothing compared to your film. I was just joking with one of your producers. I was just like, she paid me a compliment for my first short film, and look what she did with her first short film. It's like amazing. So that's a little side note, the ending, wasn't obvious, but you started hinting at it. Okay, I believe you started hinting at it because it started to feel like this is going to be a coherent F you to somebody, right? How difficult is it to provide a twist at the end? Not quite out of left field, but that also isn't obvious.
I was worried when shooting that it was going to be extremely obvious. So I just tried to play with going as far away from the ending as possible at the beginning. Pretty much, that sums it up. So yeah, I guess I coming from a place of it's, I mean, once you know, you kind of see, oh, the obviousness of it, in my opinion. Because then you're telling the story and you're like, oh, is the audience gonna know right off of the top? That was definitely a worry of mine. So it was just playing with cover and playing with the complex relationship that the two characters have, and the tension, and it was tricky. The note was tricky. because once she starts reading the note, we had to find incentive to keep reading the note and figure out at what point does she figure out, oh, it's me, and that switch happens. So yeah, we really just played with going far away from the end and a lot of cover.
Do you
Did
feel
that
the
answer
story?
your question? I feel like it didn't.
You only feel that because I looked slightly distracted and looked at the screen. I'm sorry. It's so weird to not be able to completely be there. It did answer my question though.
Okay, great.
Yeah, absolutely. Melissa, can you talk about what it means to work with 3 people who have, at least from what I've gathered, a similar artistic vision? And what's the biggest advantage to doing it with 3 other people in this collaborative sense where you're a unit as opposed to trying to go out alone?
Well, I think one of the things that we had always talked about, we met in an acting class with all of us having a theater acting sort of film background. And that was one of the things that we brought up, that although we would work on projects, passion projects, little roles here and there in a TV series, little roles, it wasn't fulfilling, and that we felt alone, and that wasn't why we all came into this art form. There was a calling that wasn't about ego or being alone, or so I think coming together, we all have our skills, and we were able to work off of each other to elevate a story. And, we're actually developing a new story, and we're rehearsing on Zoom. And each of us just are able to see through each other. And when one of us doesn't know how to go forward, we're able to help each other. So I think for me, that's one thing that I really appreciate. And I see a future in us that makes me feel like an artist, and makes me feel like what I have to say is important and what we have to say is important. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear you guys. Sorry. Yeah.
It's not you. It's me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm here.
That's a very common phrase, and I find myself repeating it quite often during these things, because I'm only 33.
Me?
No, it's no, it's not you. It's me. Yeah. No, I do, because I'm by default I'm a terrible moderator. I never cut anyone off ever. Like, you could talk for 35 minutes. I will not cut you off, regardless of how inconvenient it is to everybody else. Because I'm like, you know what? Like, we're celebrating awesome artists. This has been a really shit year for, in a sense. I don't want to say it's been a completely shit year, but this has been a year where you haven't had a lot of, I think most people haven't had a ton of time to talk about their work, and with people watching, which I think is really important. So if you want to talk, you talk. Talk all you want. And the other part that makes me a terrible moderator is I often mute myself and forget to unmute myself. So that sucks. We have a whole bunch of questions here, and before I let this get completely out of control and then I'm blasting you like 15 things. So first of all, some of these are just comments. Momaville, all right. We have Phil Bennett. No relation. Paul Russell. This is weird. Okay, what does that mean? I don't know. Were the graphics weird?
I think I know that person, and he's friends with the graphic designer, so you can just ignore that question. Sorry.
That was an inside joke. Okay. Aw, okay. We have a question for Carlota. I had watched Piggy before, and this year There Will Be Monsters. I absolutely love how twisty they are in the best possible way. I thought because it was so long that it would be a question, but it is, in fact, a comment, but a nice one, and that's always nice to hear. The listening typo, but you know, they got the point, sort of. Another comment here. I believe I showed this on screen at some point already. There aren't a lot of questions, so like a ton of comments. All right, just a heart here. Okay, this is the 6th time I think. Actually, I want to just ask this question because I think that people like me need to ask questions instead of offering answers. So I do want to ask about this because this is at least the 6th time that I've heard the word alien referred to as a feeling on set in a film industry that is predominantly male-centric, male-dominated. Have you felt that way? And are there particular, please do not take this as pandering or something like that. I mean it from the most genuine sense, that if you could speak to, do you feel that it's harder? Moina?
Did you ask me?
Yeah, we'll go talk about it. Anyone who wants to answer, go ahead.
Yeah, I do definitely feel that it's harder. I actually find being in this industry really difficult, to be really honest. It's so nice to see. I just wanted to say it's so nice to see Nora and Jacqueline and Melissa talking about their film and talking about working together. I really wish I had that with a bunch of women. And I really wish I could meet you guys because you seem so lovely, and it would just be awesome to be able to make things with you. But yeah, I don't know what to say about working in the film industry. I've actually suffered a lot of bullying in the industry, and it's come from women actually mostly, but there is just a general feeling around men that you're lesser than them, which I think that is kind of common in everyday life, just in general. But yeah, I don't really know what to say. It just is harder. It just is. Yeah. I could go on about it for ages. I don't know how to sum it up in such a small period of time.
I think what you said resonates.
Can I add to this?
Yes.
First of all, feeling is mutual. I was literally thinking that when you said that, and I was like, "Whoa!" What I think is so beautiful about working on a female set is, I mean, for how long has it been the saying, "It's a man's world," and what is the definition of a man's world? And I'm not hating on men. I'm hating on the system. And men are put into their cages like women are put into their cages as well. But it's this patriarchy, and its values are to the extreme of the male of, boys don't cry type of attitude. And I find sets can be very much like that. But what's so wonderful with working with females or on a set that's female run is, at least this is what we're trying to do with Hysterical Hearts, is break down that patriarchal system, that pyramid of even of like the director is at the top, and in Hysterical Hearts, it's so hard for us to even submit to festivals because we're like, we do everything together. We create the story together. We produce it together. Like, we go through all of it together. If we could, we wouldn't give ourselves titles to a degree. So I feel like what's so alienating is, I mean, the feeling that I can't be emotional. I can't, be all of the feminine qualities that I have, because these qualities are looked at as lesser than. They're looked at as weakness. And I think that's the struggle. And I've never seen a short block with all female storytellers, and I was completely blown away. I was like, wow, look at us go. I want to work with all of you. This is amazing. There are amazing stories. And what excites me even more than the beautiful stories is I wonder what it would be like to be on their set. And I bet you it's just as amazing as a Hysterical Hearts set.
So much more articulate than me. That was beautiful.
Enumerating on different emotions, it's really interesting, because I think one of the I'm telling everyone that if you go back and watch all the panels and all the Q&As, at some point down, you'll see certain themes that are starting to emerge. And one of the themes that started to emerge on the Future of Programming panel on Friday was, instead of telling people what they should want, what you're going to give them, why don't you ask them what they want? This idea of an all-female block came to us last year. We did Through Her Eyes the first time last year. It was a very powerful block. It was an extremely powerful block, and I think it was a statement as much as anything else, because we opened our film festival with it, right? I don't believe in selecting, and I'm just going to express my opinion, and if you hate me for this, whatever, I don't believe in selecting a project just because it was made by a woman. And I'll tell you why, and I think that that's important, because a lot of people would. So people have quotas, and they say, well, you're not meeting a quota. I was so happy that we made gender parity on our feature side for the first time, because I know why we did it. Because we had 5 really awesome films by women. There was no quota to fill. We don't have a quota, right? And this entire thought came to me from a director who won an award, who I will leave unnamed because I know for a fact that she's watching this, so she would not miss this. And she said, thank you for giving me an award at your film festival. I know because of who you are as people that there's no way in hell I won this award because I was a woman. And I won it because of my film. And it's a weird power trip to pander to someone to a degree where you almost disempower them by almost saying, well, I have to artificially lower the bar for you. I don't love Peeps because Sophie's a woman. I love Peeps because it made me laugh, and it's an amazing film, and I think that anyone who watched it probably got that. So yeah, I think that's just my spiel on programming practices in general, but I'm so happy, and one thing I will say is that I think our submissions by women get stronger every year, because it's like a snowball, because you have a director like Carlota who is winning a Best Picture award, and people are seeing that, and they're saying she beat out like 28 films by men. Clearly they are open to doing this, right? And I think having a jury last year, a shorts jury that was with Carlota, actually, who was on our shorts jury last year, with Robin Citizen from TIFF, with Alexandra, that there's we've heard a lot of things where women will say, I'm not even going to submit to a film festival if there isn't female leadership on the jury, on the board, on somewhere in the programming team, because I don't feel welcome in that space, because film is such a subjective medium. How am I supposed to understand a story like The Listening, right? It's not for me necessarily to understand. I can try to grasp it, but it's not made for me. So for me to objectively qualify it as good or bad, it's like I'm not qualified to do that. There needs to be some feedback channel. So rant over. Okay. Jesus. Okay. Back to the top, Milena. You made this film over 2 years ago initially, if I'm not mistaken. 2 years ago, and we've seen previous versions, which we alluded to earlier. How were you able to tighten up the story to a shorter runtime? Like, explain the process of doing that, why you did it, how you did it.
With great difficulty. I did it because to be honest, nobody was accepting it. And I just thought, okay, it's because it's 40 minutes long. And I should have known that to begin with, but I just hoped, I think this film is so good that it'll just get in. But I was completely naive to how it all worked. So after a year of putting it into festivals, I went, I have to do something about this. And I got some advice from a producer friend of mine who said, get a completely different editor to work on it who is not attached in any way. And so I just handed it over to him. He worked on it. He did an amazing job. He completely changed the structure, and in the end, it kind of, to me, made Freya, the main character, look crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want that to be the case. So I didn't use that version. I took a really long break from it and then went back to it, and kind of using his template, he'd shortened a lot of scenes, and I just went through the whole film and I just shortened the shit out of it. Like, I just shortened every scene, and I did have to part with a couple of scenes that I thought were beautiful but weren't essential to the story. And yes, with a lot of blood, sweat and tears, I managed to get it down to 25 minutes. I think the original version is better. I always will, but I'm still very happy. When I watch it, I still go, oh, this is good. I didn't necessarily need the other stuff, I'm really happy that I managed to keep the same pace. Like, it's quite a slow film, and I was worried that if I shortened it, it would be too quick. But yeah, I'm very happy with what it is at now.
Do you remember if we wrote you something?
You did. It was so nice. You guys are the best. Yeah, you wrote me a really lovely letter just telling me how much you loved the film and how you were sad that you couldn't include it. You didn't tell me why you couldn't include it, but I kind of knew. Yeah. Yeah, it was really nice. You're the only, well, actually, I've had 2 people do that. I've had 2 festivals do that. But yeah, it was really, really nice of you guys.
I really liked the 40-minute version, to be honest. And I hate to say this, but if you'd submitted the 40-minute version to the virtual festival, we would have been able to select it. Because that's one of the advanced, all that work for nothing. I'm sorry. You probably still wouldn't have gotten to Flickr Fest with a 40-minute.
No, well, that's the thing. I think it's going to have a bigger life now. So
I agree with that. But yeah, I mean, we really do have a, in our heads for like 27, 28 minutes. This is getting crazy now, right? With a short. But we've selected a 27-minute short, selected a 26-minute short, and this year we did select a 40-minute short. So yeah, and we put it in its own block, so you would have been a mini feature. So there you go. But again, this is just not possible in a live setting because there's a filtration process, 45 minutes out, 45 minutes in. It's like people won't buy the ticket because they're like, it's a short film, I'm not going to pay. So
even I would do that. Even I would go, 40 minutes, it's too long.
Yeah. Okay, Sophie, I want to ask you, are these 5 girls in the story based on real people or real experiences in your life? Because it feels like the entire film feels fairly organic. Now, you could be a genius who's able to just tap into perspectives that you don't actually have, and that's entirely possible, and I leave that up to you. But this felt so personal. So please let us know.
It was very much based on my own life. So I had different friends who each of the characters are based on, but in the process of making the film, I tried to make the kids into slightly different people than exactly copies of my friends, because that would be a bit crazy. So I I had the script, and the characters were a bit vaguer in the original script, and then when I met the actors, I sort of molded the characters around them. So it was a really organic process. It was sort of like, rather than having it all set in the script and locked in from the very beginning, I'm sort of more interested in finding ways to be more open to contributions that the actors have. And the girls brought so much of their own personality into the roles, because they were just so like keen to be actors and to be on screen. And and because they were so excited to share more of themselves, I sort of was like, I'm gonna get you to give me more and more. So like a lot of their monologues and stuff is coming from them. It's not necessarily coming from me, or it's like a mixture of me prompting them and them telling me their own stories. Yeah.
As a follow up to that, what is it like working with child actors? Because there's without going into any details, I've heard some horror stories, not in the way that you would imagine of like people yelling and screaming, but really like parents, right? Working with parents, like you're not just working with actors, you're working with families here, right? In a lot of ways, and parents have a right to be concerned. Is a director going to exploit? So talk about working with an extended network of families to include these girls into your film, but also making them feel comfortable enough to perform and not lock up, because I think that's a special talent in itself.
I mean, the best thing about doing the casting yourself is that you choose the parents that you want to work with as much as you choose the kids. So when I was casting, I was really careful to choose kids who I felt were more uninhibited, like who sort of from the get-go, from the audition, were able to give me more stuff. And then also I did meet their parents when they auditioned, and they were like some of the more pushy ones who would like follow me up and ask for feedback and be like, oh, what can she do better? They were the ones I sort of avoided, because I was like, I got told this when I was making the film, which is that you're casting the parents as much as you're casting the kids. So I really took that into consideration. And as for getting them to open up more and not lock up, I guess I am sort of a child myself, and I think in the rehearsals we sort of just played around a lot, and I think if I was able to be more ridiculous and silly and playful, they would be more comfortable being that way too. So yeah, it's about not trying to have this very like strict, scary kind of adult relationship with them where I'm like, you have to do it right, and if you don't do it right, you fail. But it was more like, let's just have a go, and if it turns out really strange and bad and weird, oh well, yeah.
It just taps so well into what Mark was saying in our last panel. He said, try everything. Like literally flip it, turn it, do everything possible. And I think that hits true. And there's such an experimental feel to your film. I think there's this, and it may not necessarily be interpreted that way, but it should be. It's so cool. It's so cool. I just very rarely offer that as a compliment, because it's so overused and vague. But I could think of nothing else. It's funny. It's cool. It's impactful. It's so memorable. You just pace the beats out so well. So sorry to keep keeping this glowing. Oh, we have a question for Sophie, and this ties in really well here. Where did the idea for the birds being incorporated come from?
So there's a shopping center, and this is a real thing in Melbourne. There is a shopping center in the center of the city that has a lot of birds living in the ceiling. And I was in there one time walking around desperately trying to come up with ideas for a movie. and I saw them, and I was like, I want to film this somehow, because wouldn't it be cool if someone made a nature documentary in like a really human environment like a shopping center? And then I kind of merged that idea with the scripts I had about teenage girls. Yeah.
So interesting. Nora, you mentioned the concept of wearing multiple hats, and Jackie's touched on the fact that you guys just all do the film, and if you had it your way, you would say it was directed by 4 people, written by 4 people, performed by 4 people. I understand that, but you are individuals with your own lived histories and your own strengths and weaknesses. So what is it? This is a bad question, but what is one thing that you think that you don't do necessarily that well, that the other 3 can sort of like bridge the gap, and vice versa? Like, what's one thing that you think that you do really well that maybe the other 3 members, and how do you complement each other? That dynamic is very fascinating to me.
I love that question. I would say, first of all, I feel like Savage Breakup, since it was our first project, was like the beginning of us being like, okay, like we have roles. Like I wrote it. Okay, Jackie's gonna direct. Like we kind of started with roles, and then by the end of having edited the film and putting the credits together, it felt so ridiculous to have titles on it, because it just like slowly became more and more everyone's. And we rehearse, which really changes things. It's just to say, like, once you start rehearsing something together, it becomes everyone's. But I am so happy to tell you, I am not a social media person. I am not a promoter. I am so glad to have other people who are doing that and on that. Jacqueline is Instagram amazing. And just like generally, I love networking with people who, like, having other people who have the same goal as you, who show up in the room and want to talk about it and go for it. And so doing that as a group is great. And some of us are better at it than others, depending on who we're talking to, I would say, and what our goal is. And I mean, personally, I like come at things from acting perspective and writing perspective. So that would be my strength writing wise, but honestly, it like really depends on the day and the theme and the everything. Like now Melissa and Sarah are writing our next project, and it's like slowly becoming everyone's, but they're really asking the questions that are getting us there, and so we consider them the writers, and they're sitting down and actually putting pen to paper. So that's kind of the process, but it's also a lot of listening and figuring out who has what capacity when.
That's a really interesting answer to that question. And you know, I'm always curious how that dynamic works, because I think most of us can agree that we've grown up thinking that directors do this and writers do that. So it's a interesting thing. And you know what, please tell me in a year how this is going, and you know what challenges you faced, how you found it to be advantageous, because who knows, maybe you found a new way to make films, which is really cool. Sue and Mariam, I guess this is a joint question for you guys, or maybe this is more of a Sue question, actually. The ending of the film, right? The inclusion of nudity throughout the film, which I believe tethers it into reality and helps the story. Were you ever at all concerned that including a scene like the ending scene, which was very tastefully done, by the way, and including the nudity, would limit your film festival options, would limit, you know, the type of festivals that would program it? Because I think you were at Sarajevo Film Festival with this, correct? Which, you know, to me, glowing endorsement, bravo, shout outs to Sarajevo Film Festival, because honestly, I believe in their programming department so much, but not most North American film festivals do not think like they do in Bosnia about film, art, nudity, the stuff. So, you know, speak to the decision to leave that scene in as a producer.
Great question, especially considering the Turkey context. So I was actually really concerned about the Turkish festival scene, not very much the international one. But we did get rejected from a couple very small festivals that were funded by the government. And we were accepted to the biggest ones, so it didn't really matter. So I'm talking about the Turkey part. Yeah. And I think I also was concerned about, actually our casting director was also, that we wouldn't be able to find a grandmother who would actually accept to take her top off, to actually show nudity. That was very difficult, and we were very lucky to find the one that we had, and she turned out to be a great actress. She had only some extra experience. Actually, she wasn't an actress really, but she is now after Mamaville. She did get involved in many other movies, and that was our concern. Not so much with the main actress, because we knew that we would be able to find the younger person, but not the grandmother.
Mm-hmm. Have I lost myself here? Hold on, sorry. Am I okay here? Can you hear me? Yeah? I can't hear anyone. I'm gonna have to leave because I tried to block a user who was like, who had lifted like 15 comments in a row, which is kind of spamming our feed here. And I've lost all audio. Hold on here. I'm gonna leave and come back. Be right back.
I might just take this opportunity to say I would love to connect with everyone. There might be a email thing going around, but I'm wondering if how we can all connect through email or Instagram or something.
I'm back.
Sorry.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was still here. I heard that. Yeah, so yeah. Yeah, this is still being recorded.
We were having a private conversation.
Okay. Yeah, so yesterday we had the Midnight Short block, and the actress from Freya suggested something that she thought the film festivals could do to help integrate exactly what you were trying to set up. And so what we've decided to do, and this will all be mailed to you guys soon, is that, you know, if you want to have this type of chat but not recorded, because this idea came to me actually yesterday at 7:40, you know, when we did the Dinner in America Q&A, because after we did the Q&A, we had a conversation after it stopped recording, and the conversation we recorded was awesome. The conversation we didn't record was amazing. So I think that that's important. So why don't we all, like whoever's interested in connecting, because Milena, Jacqueline, I think, you know, and I don't want to force people to connect with people that their work doesn't vibrate with the other person. Like, that's crazy. But there is a Filmmaker doc. So if you guys want us to set it up, just email us and let us know. And what we can do is next week at some point, we can have like an hour or 2 hours or whatever, you know, or have extended meetings here where this could be like a virtual room, you know, where things can actually happen, and nobody will record anything. And I frankly don't even need to be here. So yeah, so let us know if we can do that. And I think that would be a small way that we can help facilitate this type of connection. That would be amazing. Yeah. Just be mindful that we're all on different time zones and stuff. So you'll have to pick a nice little convenient place for everybody to meet time-wise. Claire, I want to get to your second question here. Does the occupation of the mom factor into how we're supposed to feel about the characters, or did it become a plot device to introduce conflict? And if you don't mind me saying, what is the, you can just tell everyone what I'm talking about. Like, what is the occupation?
Yeah, so she's a porn actress, and she works in porn. It wasn't like that was what the film was about. You know, that's always how we tackle the film. This is about a woman working in porn, but it was never, I suppose we never really set out to make people feel any one particular thing about either of them. It was just sort of trying to make as kind of human and real characters as possible, so that maybe we are making the audience ask questions. So it was always about making them ask themselves, how do I feel about these people and why, more than wanting them to come away with any answers or any opinions. Yeah.
That's awesome. Carlota, I wanted to ask you, because I've always wanted to ask you this question actually. How deliberately do you pace your film shots? Because I've noticed some incredible pacing, especially towards the endings. So in this film, you have a tendency to hold on a shot and just not cut. So do you write that into your scripts? Or do you find it? Is this a collaboration with your cinematographer? I would love to see your script. Does it say hold on this shot for 35 seconds and make the audience very nervous? So yeah.
Basically, I don't know. What I do is I only write what I know when I know how to shoot it, how I'm going to shoot it, because I write my own screenplay. So basically, if you read my scripts, you can see the film. It's almost a shot by shot description of what's going on, how it's going to be seen on the film. Basically, because I work a lot on TV and I want the producers know what they're going to get, so I don't get in trouble after that. And I don't shoot coverage. Basically, all the shots you see is just the shot you have. You don't have anything else to cut to.
Wow.
Most of the times. So in this one, there's nothing else basically. So sometimes even in Piggy, you have just what we got. I mean, there's nothing more and there's nothing after that. You know, you could in the first rough cut, you could hear me saying cut. You know, because that's what we had. Also because I have very little time to shoot, so I always storyboard and just go like this, this, and this.
So it's very deliberate, and I'm curious, and I'm sure everybody else here would be curious about what you're doing next, because you've been greenlit for a feature.
Yes, actually, right now I'm in Extremadura because I'm location scouting my first feature, the adaptation of Piggy to the big screen.
And will Lara be back in the leading role?
Of course.
She's so amazing.
Yes,
the charismatic, and for those of you who don't know, like Piggy is on it's on Alter. You can watch it. I very much suggest you watch it. Everyone I've ever suggested this film to has loved it. I've never met anyone who didn't like a film, and I've never had a film where that happened. So this is just one of those universally lovable films.
I don't know.
Have you met people who didn't like it?
I met people who felt really perturbed by it.
That's still liking it, sort of. I think. But yeah, no, I think this short is amazing. We actually cut a trailer for it, which I think 3 or 4 days before Pendance, we woke up, and there was such a crazy response to it. I think it had like 20,000 views, something like that. Some crazy response. I was like, what the hell? And it's like the people who messaged after the screening saying it was so good to see this type of story. It was so good to see somebody who looks like Lara in a leading role. I identify with the story, so I think you've cut on a nerve, and I can't even wait to see the feature. And a funny aside, the fact that you don't shoot coverage I'm so thankful for that, because that's such a pro tip on how to not lose your film in the edit. When the producers are coming in to chop everything, and they find the opposite shot, and you don't have it because you didn't shoot it, because you only shot exactly what you wanted and you burned the rest. So I'm so happy to hear that, because now I know that your feature will be yours and not some producer chopped up crap. So I'm so happy, and I'm looking forward to your film.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jackie, do you feel the story could have worked if instead of confronting her friend, that she had confronted the guy who actually cheated on her?
I will answer that, but I just want to say congratulations, Carlita.
Carlota.
Sure. That's amazing. Congratulations. In my mind, she is going to confront him. We just didn't film that part. But it is fully still a part of the story that we told. Whether she did it right before or right after, it was always something she did. It was like sort of her lineup of like, pew, pew, pew. So she still got him. She still confronted him in a different way. But if you're asking, would it have still worked if it was her boyfriend that she played the whole sort of trick on? I mean, yeah, it still would have worked. But that's not the story we wanted to tell.
I think it would have worked. It just would have been a completely different story, and I think you would have summed it up perfectly there. There's a question here from Harry, and I think Melissa, you might be the perfect person to answer this. But I think anyone, please feel free to chime in because this is a pretty big question here. This may have already been answered, but this program is titled "Through Her Eyes." What are the things that we can glimpse through her eyes that we might not see through his? Kudos, Harry, on a wonderfully eloquent question. Does anyone want to answer this?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Literally every single film that you just saw.
I just feel like so many of the stories were so poetic. You know, when you ask like what things does Nora do better and what things does Jackie, you know, how we complement each other. I think I come from an instinctual, these questions, I don't have the best words to express what I'm thinking, but these point of views are clearly female point of views, are clearly stories that as women, there are questions, their storyline, everything about it. I see myself in these stories. So that is the glimpse. That is it. All of these stories, they are a glimpse into a woman, thoughts, beliefs, judgments. Yeah, if anybody would like to add to that.
I'm just really curious what the audience would think because they're the ones seeing this, what they would get out of it, what they get out of it, having that all the stories are told by women and through our eyes.
That's another question. We'll answer that. I heard the host earlier mention, how am I supposed to understand a story like The Listening? It's not for me to understand. I can try to grasp, but it's not made for me. Do the filmmakers think that their films are made only for women and only for women to understand them, or are and should their films be made for everyone to understand? Can I just address this quickly? Because Carlos, I did say that, but please note that I did also say these are 7 films by women about women for everyone for a reason. So I just want to clarify, I don't think that these films are just for women, but please, to everyone else who this question applies to, please feel free.
I have an answer to this question. Well, for me personally, I, as a female filmmaker, you grow up watching films mostly about male protagonists, and the assumption with all those films is that they are made for everyone. And so for me, when I make a film about a female protagonist, it's always made for everyone, because we're all human beings in the end. And if you're a good storyteller, you can empathize with anybody. Yeah.
Anyone want to add to
That's
that?
it.
Or did that just pretty much drop the mic on that question?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm actually curious as well to see, because I think there have been films that you notice a certain theme when, and I'm not saying it's always when it's written by a man. Sometimes men write women, very strong women, in their films. Sometimes men write films that our female programmers are like, you don't get why this is so good, but if you were a woman, you would get this, and it's by a man. So that happens too sometimes. But I do think that with any person who sees themselves represented one way in a film, or in all films consistently, if you're always the secondary character with the secondary goals, if you're always the object of, if you're always the passive force as opposed to the active force, I think that can somehow subconsciously create a narrative in your own mind, because this is the only version of my story that I've ever seen on screen. And I think that that's why these films are really important, because I don't think that these characters are passive. I think these characters are trying to break through. And I ask every short block this question, and this is the most obvious question for this short block, is do you understand why your films were put together? Sorry, everyone's on mute, so no one can answer. Because some of the short blocks were a little bit more abstract. We had story over everything. It's like, what the hell does that mean? So all of our short blocks are like a feature anthology, is what we are going for in terms of the sequence and the pacing and how we put them together. And we want the audience to come out with a coherent feeling. And so so that was really what this film was. This film block was about for us, at least as programmers. Was we wanted people to come out of the block feeling that there was a rebellious spirit, and there's an empowering spirit to that. So that's apparently I'm a terrible moderator, because I also don't know how to cut myself off. So I do want to leave this open for final words from everybody before we ramble on throughout the night. I know that at least for our guests from Turkey, you guys must be very, very tired and sleepy, and I'm so sorry to keep you up. And Sophie, I'm sure you want to start your day. And so any final words? We can just unmute ourselves all and just say adios. Everyone's on?
Let's hope we'll meet in person someday.
I hope so.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this block. Thank you for being part of Pendance. And if there's anything that we can do for you at any point, including this, meetup thing that we're talking about, please email us, let us know, keep in touch. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of the films. See you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
How do I get out of here?
Wait, how do we meet each other? Okay, well, I'm just gonna give you my.
I don't even know how to exit.
I don't either. I guess I'll leave studio. But I was like,
I just saw this cross.
you know what? I'm gonna message Robert and be like, can we just get everyone's email or Instagram?
I thought he did send an email earlier on saying that he was going to do that. Was going to send all of us and ask for our permission, and then I don't know what's happened. So
okay, maybe once the festival's over, he'll do that.
Yeah.
Either way, can I add you to Instagram right now?
I don't have Instagram, but add me on Facebook.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
Facebook. Okay.
I didn't get to watch anyone's film. I actually tried to, and I'm not very tech savvy. And I was like, I don't understand how my pass works. And I was trying to watch it before. Anyway, because I'm overseas.
Guys?
Yeah.
I forgot to hit end broadcast. I hit click out.
Well, we're having a nice chat.
But it's live.
But it's live.
Is it still live?
Did I say I was the worst moderator or what? You guys...
You're the worst moderator.
I think we're still live, and you call me the worst. Oh, but we have more comments. Why the hell? You guys got it. Okay.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh my god, that's so funny. I guess we should have left and just chatted on our own.
Oh, thanks, Paul. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
That's so funny.
okay. Maybe we should leave the studio.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye.